You might remember that Amy Curry was my first guest when the show aired back in June of last year. Now we are back to talk with her about what she's been up to and what exciting new books she has in store for us. Please help me welcome Amy Curry. Please help me welcome Amy Curry. Hey, Amy, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hey, thanks for having me again.
Well, it seems like you were just here.
You know.
Yeah, so listen, you were my very first guest. Was said in last week's show. You were my very first guest when we got started last year in June of 2023. And I felt it was only right to have you back as my very first guest this year. You know, I think I'm going to make it a tradition.
Yeah.
You'll be my
First guest every year.
First guest and last guest every year.
Exactly.
So today you're here not to talk about your role in the show, although you play a huge role in the show, but to talk about your books and being an author.
Yeah, it's exciting. I have 6 books out now, and I've got my 7th book, which is the first in a new series, at the editor, and I'm super excited. It's completely different from all the other ones that I've done, and I'm super excited to get that one out.
Tell us about that. Like, I can't wait. I'm excited too. So tell us all about that.
This one is actually a Christian cozy series. It's a little bit of a departure because my main character is a little bit older. It was really fun to write her, though, because I got to write somebody with a little more experience, not somebody who's necessarily naive about things, and like some of the ones I've written before. And she has a fun sidekick, and she's just super sassy, and it was just really, really fun to write. It was fun to write people who have life experience.
Yeah, I bet. And you know what? I think that'll be popular, too, because, like, when you mention it, like, I don't know the ages of these characters or if they even have an age, because I know sometimes when people write things, they don't really pin them down to like, this person is 62.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like they're in an area. But when you said they're older, immediately I thought of like Dorothy, Blanche, Sophia from the Golden Girls, Rose, and all of them.
Love me some Golden Girls. I love
I
them.
do too.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of like those kinds of characters
Okay,
where they're just funny and they're fun, and it seems like people you want to hang out with.
Does it have a title yet?
It
Or you don't
does,
want it?
but
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
waiting to release that one. But
Okay, well, good. All right, good. So, so you mentioned that you write cozy mysteries.
Yes.
So tell the audience what a cozy mystery is in case they don't know.
Yeah, cozy mysteries are a lot like just regular mysteries, but they lack some things that you would normally see in like a regular mystery or thriller. There's no on-screen violence, no, on-page, foul language, anything like that. So they're all just super family friendly. And I've had people, as young as like 10 or 12 read my books and really like them.
Yeah.
And then I've had people, in their 90s read my books. So it really does kind of run the gamut.
Yeah, and that's funny that you say that because my sister-in-law Dolores that lives in Florida, she's 78, I think she's 78,
Yeah.
and she loves your books.
Yeah.
As soon as the new one comes out, she orders it immediately. She's like right after me. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get it first. But she loves it, and then she passes it down to her little young grandchildren or great-grandchildren, and they love them too. So it does, there's no barrier, age
No.
gap or anything, so they appeal to everybody.
Exactly. And that's kind of why I went with cozy mystery as opposed to something else, because my reading is really, really diverse. And I read stuff that would probably scare people to death. And then, then I read cozy mysteries. But I chose to write cozy mysteries because I felt like that was an audience that I could more easily relate to. And I wanted to be able to, write something that, one, I felt good about, and two, that I knew could reach a really broad audience.
I love the fact that it's clean.
Yeah.
That it's clean because, listen, the world today, and I was just telling somebody the other day, and I don't want to get preachy or anything like that, but we live in a very perverse, the Bible talks about it being a perverse generation, and the world is so perverse. It was my son I was talking to the other night. I told him, I said, Josh, the world is so perverse right now. It's like the more disgusting, evil, horrible thing that you can think to do or be, people love that. But I like the fact that we still have books like you write,
Exactly.
and like the other people put out, there's still clean movies, there's good books. I mean, there is an audience for these things.
Exactly. And I felt like too, there's a lot of, like you talked about, a lot of negative things going on. And my escape was always to pick up a book and read.
Yeah.
Because when you pick up a book, it takes you to that world, and you're not really where you are anymore. And so I thought, why add any more negativity, why not add some positivity? So that's, that's kind of the reason why I wanted to do that, is because I wanted to be able to, if somebody 20 years from now looks back and says, oh wow, she wrote a really positive book.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want,
yeah.
to be able to have added something positive out there where there's always so much negative.
I love that. And you talk about, all the negative and stuff like that. I don't have, like, I have the Roku stick, but I don't have like regular TV or anything. But I had it on a channel the other day, and I was watching Andy Griffith, and a commercial come on that floored me, because for a long time I didn't even have TV at all because I was so busy and I never got to watch TV. But when that commercial come on, it floored me, and I was like, on TV? I couldn't believe the things that was being shown on TV at a time in the day when little kids are probably watching. So, it's just like, so if we can have the positive stuff like that to reach the kids, that's fantastic. And,
Exactly.
so I asked you to bring your books last year when you were on. You came without your books.
Because I'm a loser and I forgot them last
You're not a
time.
loser. But anyway, I was like, please bring your books this time. So
Yeah.
if you don't care, put them over here and let's look at them.
All right. So this is my first series. I have these 3 books. Let me hold them up here so Adam can get them in the shot. And I could never be a weather girl. I'm just going to say it, because when things are backwards to me, it completely messes with me. And I've determined that weather girl is not in my forte. Like, they have no worries of me coming to take their job.
What about Vanilla White, like this right here?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to let's take time for just a second
Okay.
on each book. So the first one was Spring Blooms and Murder. And where am I at? What camera? I don't know. But anyway, this starts out with Mickey Bridgewater. I keep wanting to call her Mikey. No, it is Mikey.
It's Mickey.
Mickey,
Yeah,
okay.
you're right.
Listen, y'all, I'm telling you, like, I called her Mikey forever because I don't know why. I just did. But anyway, Mickey Bridgewater and her buddies. And so this was the first one. This is such a good book. And then Star Spangled Murder. This revolved around 4th of July.
Yes.
So all of them are seasons. So, of course, this was spring. And then this was the 4th of July. And then you got Scarecrow, Skeletons, and Murder. And that is so cute. I
That
love
is the cutest cover. That is probably one of my favorite covers, just because it's so darn cute.
Yeah. Now, who does your covers?
Cilla Webb at Mask of the Red Pen Publishing. She is awesome. She does all my covers. She does all my editing. She's wonderful.
She is.
Literally, I come to her with ideas, and I tell her that she does whatever magic she does and makes them come out looking like that. So
Yeah, she
she's
does
awesome.
fantastic. Look how pretty that is. I mean,
I know.
they're
That was
all
a
so
really.
pretty.
I've had a lot of people comment on that cover in particular, the Spring Blooms and Murder. They
just-
really like that one.
It pops out at
Yeah.
you. I mean, it really does. And excuse me, when I'm on Amazon and I'm looking for a book, and they all come up in the little thumbnails like that, and you're
thumbnails.
scrolling. I'm telling you, people say you can't judge a book by its cover, but that's the first thing that catches
Y'all,
your eye.
Everybody judges books by the cover.
Yeah.
They really do.
Because
it's
if it-
just if the cover doesn't look, first of all, professional, nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Nobody wants the ones that I can
Yeah.
make. Everybody wants the good stuff.
And if it doesn't pop out at me and look interesting
Exactly.
or catch my eye in some way, I'm not going to get it.
You're not gonna get it.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, your cover is one of the main selling points of your book. If somebody's just like browsing,
Yeah.
just trying to find something. So So you did this. When did these? I think I'm gonna let you tell when they first came out.
These all came out in 2017. All 3 of these. I wrote these and got them out fairly quickly. Actually, I wrote them, but I will tell you these are shorter. These are like novella length, about 25,000 words. And when I say that, sometimes people are like, "Oh my God, 25,000 words!" But really, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot. Whenever you're looking at it, a lot of people's books are 80,000 or more. So for me, that was huge. Though when I got to 10,000 words, I thought I was like really rolling. I thought I was doing something. But these came out in 2017, and then I kind of took a little hiatus and worked for another company for a while, did some ghostwriting, learned a lot there just simply because these I wrote completely by the seat of my pants, total pantster on these. Now I'm a total plotter. And what I am doing is I'm going back, because after my second series came out, there was a moment where people realized somebody's name had changed. And they were referring to someone as their husband and not their boyfriend. So then I started getting the messages and the emails, "Hey, where's our wedding at?" And so now I have been working on book 4 for the series so that people can have their wedding and I don't get nasty emails.
Yeah. So let's like move it from that into that. So Mikey Mickey.
Yeah, Mickey.
And her friend,
Meg.
Meg. That's right. What is wrong with me, y'all? I think I've lost my mind. It's been a long year. But anyway, so Mickey and Meg are amateur detectives.
Yes.
They solve murders in town by accident. They really stumbled into it.
Yes, and
by
they get in
accident.
lots of trouble doing so.
Yeah, in lots of trouble with Paul, the policeman.
Yes, because he's not happy that they're getting into police business.
Yeah,
Just
sticking
like any good police officer would do. He tries to deter them from getting into things
Yeah,
they shouldn't be into.
so you kind of you had those 3, and then it stopped there, and you felt like 3 was enough, right? In
Exactly.
this series, you feel like
Yeah.
3 is enough. All right, so then you decide to take and focus on another set of characters that was born in these 3 books. So let's see the next 3.
So these 3 books are actually characters that I introduced in the first series. They were just kind of like extras or whatever. And I did a little short free book called The Disappearing Act, and that was kind of our prequel to this series here. So we have Lily and Daisy Evergreen, and it is not lost on me that they have very botanical sounding names because their parents were hippies. And they own a bait shop, which is kind of unusual for girls, but having grown up hunting and fishing and camping and all this other stuff, like, to me, that's second nature. So it was nothing for me to talk about, them owning a bait shop. It belonged to their parents, and it got left to them. So I did the free book to kind of introduce those characters, and then I went straight into these books. And these started probably 2021-ish, when COVID was in, and I was just kind of playing around a little bit, and I actually wrote all 3 of them before I ever sent the first one for her to edit. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I had them just sitting there waiting because I
Wow.
was trying to figure out the right time, and life happens and you get busy doing other things and whatever, and she was busy, and I
Yeah.
never want to feel like I'm overwhelming her, because I feel like I overwhelm her sometimes.
That's a good idea, though, Amy, because I think that, like, if you have them all ready to go, then your readers have to wait less time.
Exactly.
Because, and you know me, I'm like, when's the next one coming out, Amy? When's the next one
Right.
coming? And so
Exactly.
and you even had them all, and I'm still was like, when's the next one coming? But
Well, and that's the thing, like, a lot of people don't realize when you're traditionally published, and this is another thing, like, I always say I would love it if a traditional publisher, would pick up my stuff. However, I have the freedom right now to release these whenever I want to. If you're with a traditional publisher, it can take, up to a year sometimes to even find an agent, because nobody's going to talk to you if you don't have an agent. They're not just going to call you up from Random House and say, hey, I heard you had a book. But, and then it can take them up to 2 years to publish that book. And you don't have any say-so in what the covers look like. And if they want you to change the story, you have to do that. So I have control over all of my work, my covers, my story, however I want. So I kind of like being an indie author, and I encourage other indie authors, if you're thinking about it, don't feel like you have to be traditionally published to be taken seriously. I mean, I haven't sold a crap ton of books, but I've sold a pretty good bit.
listen, I don't know if you know this or not, but I see plenty of people, like big name people, who are okay. Paula Dean's last book,
Yeah.
her very last book that is released. I think it was released in November last year, 2023. So that book, I forget what it's called, but it's like her sign-off book. It's supposed to be her last book. Did you know that she published it herself?
Oh,
That's
see?
an indie book
Exactly.
herself.
So, yeah.
So she had more control over it. She got to put in what she wanted,
Yep.
and she didn't have somebody telling her, "Oh no, maybe you shouldn't put that," or "We want it like this."
Yeah,
or
that recipe's
whatever.
not healthy enough.
Yeah,
Or
yeah. So
add that butter, Paula.
exactly.
We don't care.
So you're in charge of what it looks like. I mean, you get to
Exactly.
pick your colors. You get to pick. You get to tell Scylla what you want
Yeah.
it to look like. And
Exactly.
then you get to put it out on your timetable. I love that. But yeah, so the 3 girls are Lily,
Lily and Daisy,
Daisy.
they're sisters.
and then
they
the
have
tagline.
Ellie, who is their kind of like adopted little sister that they've taken in. So yeah, this series, for one, was a little different because it's twice the length of the other ones. And that it really was a struggle, because I was like, oh gosh, can I write 50,000 words? I thought 25 was doing something. But yeah, when I hit like 30 and 40, I was like, whew, okay, this is getting serious.
And once you start writing, it really does count. And
Yeah.
especially the more you get to know your characters,
Exactly.
they really start. Because like it's not about me, but I've written books.
Yeah.
And honestly, once you start to feel the characters out, they really do the talking for you.
Exactly.
And that's what I was going to ask you. One of my questions was going to be, do you see the action in your mind as you're writing?
I'm such a probably, I guess, maybe a weirdo or an anomaly or whatever. Everything that I write, I see it like a movie in my head. And of course, I'm a person who I'm a very vivid dreamer. So all of my dreams are super real. And so that's kind of how it is when I write. Even when I read, everything I read, it like plays like a movie in my head.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of how I write too, because it really does play like a movie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My first book, especially, I read it in 2015. I remember just sitting there with the laptop and honestly thinking back, I don't even remember if I looked at the screen because it's like I was watching it in my head and I was just typing it as it was playing out. And and the characters were really telling me what they were going to, and like you, I didn't have a plot or anything. I was just sitting there writing it. Wherever it took me, whatever they did for the day and where their life took them, that's how it came out.
Yeah.
And for me, plotting is hard. I know you're a plotter.
I've gotten to pretty good at it now, and now that I've gotten to it, it's hard for me. Like when I'm trying to go back and write book 4, and I plotted it because I cannot just write it by the seat of my pants. I can't do it.
Well,
Not
see,
anymore.
I'm more of like, I don't know why, it's just easier for me to just write it and let
Yeah.
it play. So, but listen, I love and I saw you on a live with
Sean Amick.
yeah, Sean Amick, a big TikToker,
Yeah,
an
I
author
love
on
him.
TikTok.
He's so much fun. He's
Yeah.
from West Virginia, so I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. So I saw you on there, and people were commenting saying how much they loved your titles. So
Yes.
Big Bass Catcher and Body on a Stretcher. How in the world did you come up with that?
I always come up, I'm different too, because some people will write a whole book and then try to figure out what the title is. I always come up with titles first,
Wow.
and then I write my book around the title.
Yeah.
I pick a theme, I figure out what my titles are going to be, and then I write the book.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's great. So
Yeah.
the second one is Campground Struggles and Murderous Troubles.
Yeah.
And I love that they're catchy.
Yeah.
And then Campers, Canoes, and Fishing for Clues. And see, it's just so catchy and easy
Yeah.
to remember. So yeah, I love this. So these 3 books follow the 3 girls on their adventures. And I want to tell you something. And I've told you, and listen, y'all, I'm not joking when I say there's some scenes in these books that had me like on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my gosh, if I was a nail biter, I'd have been biting my nails because, they were it was like, I don't even know the words. It was exciting. It's like, oh my gosh. And those type of scenes that you put in there, that's what kept me turning the pages. That's what kept me reading, and I would message you and I would call you. And I remember I did a video. I held my phone up. My makeup was everywhere. And I was like, Amy, if this character gets killed, I swear I'm never talking to you again. And then I see it and then I was like, read on.
Exactly,
So that's
yeah.
how exciting those books are.
Yeah, I get threatened all the time not to kill characters.
So how do you feel like you've grown as an author from this series to this series?
I think just that working with the other company, being a ghostwriter and kind of learning the backside of it, and just working with Scylla for these 7-8 years, whatever, that I've worked with her, it's just been huge for me because I feel like she has taught me a lot in that know your voice. I'm country, I write like I talk. I drop my G's and whatever. And, I noticed that she sent her first book. She's doing a rewrite of her first book, Covered in Coal. And she sent that to me, and she said, I need you to go through this. And just kind of, she said, I'm turning the tables on you. I need your feedback. And I sat down, and I thought how crazy it was that she had to put kind of like a warning in the beginning that I'm Appalachian, I speak country, I drop my G's, this is not a typo. This is just how we talk. I don't, I would never think to say, hey, by the way, I'm dropping all my G's and, whatever. But, to think that she put that in there, and I never thought to do that, but I guess people didn't really mind. But I really do. I mean, but I feel like I have kind of found my voice in being able to tell stories in a way that, relate that more, a whole bunch of people can relate to. So
Yeah, and I was going to say, especially in this series, like this series is set in Pine Ridge, West Virginia, so we
Yes.
kind of know it's, and like we get a feeling, like they say, write what you know, like
Yeah,
you said, write what
exactly.
you know. So we get that feeling there, but this is definitely, I can definitely tell this is you writing
Yeah.
because, like you said, you grew up hunting, fishing.
Yeah.
Or hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
I just dropped my G's.
Camping and-
Hunting,
yeah.
fishing, camping, and all
Yeah.
that. And you definitely wrote what you know. And whenever the girls would talk, or when anybody would talk, but especially the girls, I could hear that, and I
Yeah.
knew that was, somebody could hand me two books, one by you and one by somebody else, and not tell me who they were by, and I could pick up your book because I've got that feel for who you are now as a writer.
And that you were talking about when I did the interview with Sean Amick, and that was so much fun because he actually read an excerpt from Big Bass Catcher. And, they said, hey, send us, a couple of pages and whatever. So I picked a scene, I sent it, and it was really funny because I didn't realize he was from West Virginia until he started reading that book.
Oh, wow.
Because he didn't really have much of an accent until when he started reading that book, that excerpt. I was like, where did that accent come from?
Yeah.
And so then I asked him afterwards, hey, where are you from? And he told me. And I thought that was really neat because I was like, yeah, that accent came right out.
Yeah, it came out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. That was so good. You did a fantastic job. And that was a live interview, too, that
Yeah.
night. And you did so well. You're just, like, ready with the answers, man. I struggle. So,
Sometimes I drive the struggle bus, but it's okay.
I'm a passenger on it always. So what sparked your interest in writing? I mean, how old were you, first of all, when you thought, I mean, I know you've loved to read all your life.
Yeah, I've always been a huge reader. I never really thought about writing much until I was probably like in high school. And we had one of my English teachers, Miss Hunt. She was so wonderful in being so encouraging to all of our students, but mostly she would give us vocabulary words. We'd have like 15, and she would give us the word and the meaning. And she was like, okay, I want you to use these in either a story or a poem. Well, back then I did poetry all the time. Mostly for undeserving teenage boys. But I digress.
Don't we all?
Yeah,
Don't we all?
exactly. And so, I would just always do poems with my words, and sometimes she would read them. Sometimes she would get people to stand up and read their things, and for me I never thought about stories. I always thought I can't tell a story. But the more I read, the more I thought, well, yeah, you can, because it's, if it's your story to tell, then you can do it. So I think it was just really that encouragement, and the encouragement from Scylla whenever, I first sent her something over. It was just, that was the thing. My watch is telling me I'm sitting too long.
Yeah, I love that. Listen, thank God for teachers. Thank God for Miss Hunt.
Yeah,
Because, it all starts somewhere. It started in your mind, but you had to have her to encourage that.
Exactly.
Man, let me tell you something. I have, like, the ultimate respect for teachers and nurses.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
hands
I couldn't
down,
do it.
teachers and
Either
nurses.
one of them.
I know.
I worked at the hospital and I work in the school system. I couldn't be a nurse and I could not be a teacher.
I mean, because when you're a teacher, you can either, even as a parent, but especially teachers, you have 25, 30 kids in your room every day. You can make them or break them.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
it sounds like she made you, like
Right.
she had a hand in, like,
Yeah.
forming your love of
Right.
taking those words and putting them on
Exactly.
paper.
I had her as junior English. I had her husband as sophomore English. Her son was my psychology and U.S. history teacher.
Wow.
So I had the whole family, and
Oh,
they're all
wow.
wonderful, wonderful people, and they were all very encouraging.
Yeah. So, do you remember what your very first short story or poem was? You don't have to say the poem since it was about a boy.
Honestly, it was probably just something in high school, one of those vocabulary things. I probably wrote things before that, but nothing that really I could honestly could remember.
Do you remember
Yeah.
your first one that you wrote that really, like, stuck with you and you thought, wow, like, even in high school, like, I can remember
Yeah.
in 10th grade, my English teacher, Miss McCoy, I remember that's when it's,
Yeah.
like, I kept a journal all the time, but I remember one day she said, write something during the class period, and it was like one page front and back, and I remember having to force myself to stop.
Yeah.
And I remember that day and thinking, I didn't think, like, one of these days I want to write a
Yeah.
book, but I look back now and see how that played a part in,
I would say for me, sitting down with my dad, watching the news, and I'm aging myself here, Desert Storm. I was in high school, and I can remember like how helpless I felt and how I thought, this is crazy. This is war. I've never known war. I'm a kid. Like, I don't, my dad was in Vietnam, but I didn't know anything about, actual war. But to see it on television and whatever, and I sat down and I kept that notebook for years, and somehow it got lost in the shuffle and whatever of life. And you know how you move 10 times and your things get lost. But I had written a poem about that war and about, how it affected me to see it from a distance and, and things like that. So that's probably the one that is, to me, was I wish I still had it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, maybe it'll turn up one day. You never know.
Yeah, never know.
I mean,
Yeah.
you can go out in your garage and
Exactly.
look in a box and there it'll be.
Go look at my mom's house or something. It's probably
I
there.
hope that happens for you. I
Yeah.
really do. That would be great. So, what do you feel like your greatest strength is as a writer?
My insane ability to come up with more things to write. Y'all, I'm not kidding. I'll be 150 by the time I get everything written, and I'm still adding to it every day. It's crazy. Every time I come across something, I'm always just finding new ideas and
That's good though. I mean, have you ever considered hiring a ghostwriter? Like one day, like 'cause you have, listen, I think about people, Amy, and I thought about this the other day. How many people in the world who have gifts and talents, but who don't ever do anything with them, or the fear of failure or not even knowing how to get started causes them to then, when their life is over, they die with all of that.
Yeah.
They die with it, and that's things that we could have had in the world,
Exactly.
So do you ever consider letting somebody else write it?
I have thought about plotting them and then just selling them, selling all the plots and just let them write. So
Wow.
I don't know. We'll see.
That'd be a great moneymaker,
Yeah.
girl. You need to do that. Yeah. So
Nice little side gig,
yeah. So do you remember where you were the day that you decided, I'm going to write Spring Blooms and Murder? Do you remember that day?
Yeah, I do. I was sitting on my couch watching the Food Network. Because let me just tell you, the Food Network is some really good background for when I'm writing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but then it makes me hungry, and then I have to go and and I can tell you, my cousin, who does not read these kinds of books whatsoever, he's more of the fantasy end of the of the book world, and he read them because they were mine, and he was doing me a solid, and he sat down one day and he sent me a text message, and he said, "My God, how much more are you going to talk about food? Like, seriously, what were you watching?" I was like, Food Network. Because, like, I always write about, what they're eating or what they're snacking on or, whatever. Because, listen, it's life. We eat. Like, I can't stand to watch a TV show where nobody eats or nobody is like, you're like, okay, when do you all eat? Because I can't go like that long without eating something.
You know what would be a cute idea if you wanted to do it? Like with these books right here, you could go back and maybe make like a recipe book.
Exactly.
Of the things,
Yeah.
build off of them. Like this right here, you could, I don't know, maybe, you could build off of things like that and have other books. I know, but listen, you got 150 more books to write, so
Exactly.
I don't need
I've got a lot, but yeah.
more. But that brings me to my next question I was going to ask you. Are you the type of person that when you have, say you're working on, your next series with the older ladies, so you're working on those and you get this idea and you go like, oh man, squirrel, I gotta write this. Do you write simultaneously, work on both projects, or do you just write it down and then come back to it? How do you work?
I usually go over and lay it out.
Okay.
In Google Docs. I make a folder for it. I go ahead and lay out. I'm a 3-book kind of person. I feel like that's my sweet spot, and I feel like sometimes if I go more than that, I don't want to get people where they don't want to see the characters anymore, like, oh my God, another book about these people. But and then too, I think you can only kill so many people in a town before it starts to get a little crazy. Because these are small towns. These are not like large towns that I'm writing. So, but yeah, and I just kind of lay it out to the side, kind of throw my idea down so I don't forget it, and then I just go back to what I'm doing. And then sometimes I will jump over and write a little bit on something else if I'm, if I'm feeling a little froggy.
Yeah, that's a good idea though, because I think that a lot of times, listen, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I did this a couple weeks ago, and I had this idea. I was going to make, sometimes I make like the saying things and post it on Facebook or TikTok, and I thought that would be a good thing to post. And then I was like, okay, I need to write it down. I was like, I'm too sleepy. And the next morning when I woke up, I couldn't remember it.
Yeah,
I was
exactly.
like,
You
what
slept since
the-
then. Yeah, you
I
forgot.
know, what the heck? So I should have jotted it down.
Yep.
But what's the most challenging thing for you writing in cozy mystery?
I would say probably to find new inventive ways to kill characters,
Oh, okay.
but still stay within those expected norms of cozy mysteries.
Yeah, those
you know.
boundaries.
And you can, and I have, as a matter of fact, written cozies where people don't get killed. I find that harder.
Wow,
It's
yeah.
really, I really struggle to write cozies where I don't kill somebody. I know that probably says something about me, but I really do struggle
You're
with
sinister. So,
Yeah.
but so I really wanted to ask you this. So, the people who are your victims, are they always based on people who are less than likable in your life?
Okay, so not all the people I kill in books are unlikable. Let's just say that. But I do tend to pull traits from people I know or people I've known in the past or even people I hear other people talk about because that's really good. Like I've been literally standing in a Starbucks before and heard conversations and think, okay, I'm going to add that somewhere, put that in a little mental Rolodex there. But yeah, I mean, so I do try to pull traits, but I will say the first character that I killed off was definitely based on somebody who had made my best friend mad. And
wow.
so I thought, you know what? You're going to die in a book. It's just all there is to it.
That's the best way.
Exactly,
You know what?
yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
I think I need to get back to it.
Yeah.
Wow. So, yeah, I love that, though.
Yeah.
But do you have any odd writing habits or any superstitions or things that you have to do?
I have to have something on in the background.
Wow.
If it's completely silent, I cannot write. That drives me insane because my mind wanders too much. Because then I'm busy thinking about that load of laundry that I need to do, or hey, that other book is sitting over there and you haven't touched it yet, and things like that. So if I have something like Food Network playing in the background, to me that's just noise, but it keeps me from it allows me to focus and not have to deal with all the other. And the other thing is I have to have snacks. So I don't care if it's like M&Ms or mini chewy sweet tarts or something, and I line them up along where the laptop top and bottom meet. I line them up across there,
wow.
and so I can just grab them and yeah.
Good idea. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way too. The second book I wrote, these two characters, it was kind of an odd genre. It's kind of like 50 Shades of Grey. Sorry about that. I shouldn't have wrote that. But anyway, so to get into that relationship with those two people, I made a playlist of very sensual songs that were out at that time, back in 2016 or 15. And I listened to it on repeat with headphones in as I was typing, and it really got me there. And I was
Yeah,
like,
well, a lot of people do. I'll see them. They'll say, "Hey, I need a playlist for this kind of book I'm writing or whatever." But for me, literally, I just listen to Food Network. Yeah.
Also, this after every book I finish, I always have to eat truffles. I always have to have chocolate truffles. Always. That's my
Yeah,
odd thing.
exactly.
So
Hey.
I love your sweet tarts though lined up.
Yeah. I love mini chewy sweet tarts.
So anyway, do you have any? I wanted you to touch on this before we go. Do you have any suggestions for anybody who wants to write but does not know how to get started?
Honestly, just do it. Like if you have an idea, start it. I mean, even if it's bad, that's what editors are for. That's what. Trust me when I say they'll let you know if you mess something up because Scylla has some tough love sometimes. But I mean, just do it. Just get started because any forward progress is still progress. I don't care if it's 10 words a day or if it's 10 chapters. It doesn't matter. I mean, forward progress is forward progress.
Exactly.
And if you don't start now, then you're going to be looking next year at the same time and thinking, man, I could have already been finished,
Yeah, and have a lot of regrets. That's one
Exactly,
thing in
yeah.
my life I don't ever want to regret. That's why I try things that are crazy. People are like, you did what? Like when I auditioned for Dollywood Entertainment. I can't sing, I can't dance. But there I was up on stage with a bunch of young people, like 200 young people in leotards. And I'm talking, these people were like 17, 18 years old.
Yeah.
Professional dancers. And there's me.
Hey, listen, if you don't try, you'll never know.
Right, but I was having fun, and at least I can say in 2019 I auditioned for Dollywood Entertainment. I didn't make it, but I still did it, and I
Exactly.
will never have a regret that, like, gosh, I should have tried.
And what have I told you 100 times? The answer is always no if you don't ask.
Exactly, and I love that
So,
too.
yeah.
Yeah, and I always say, like, one of the things, especially at trying to get guests and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like, just do it, because there's a 50% chance that they'll say no, but there's a 50% chance they'll
Exactly.
say yes too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Mhm.
So you talked about, like criticism and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your toughest criticism that you've ever got?
Honestly, it's all come from Scylla. Every bit of the tough criticism I've gotten from, hey, I don't know what you're trying to do here, but this makes no sense. You need to completely rewrite this whole, paragraph here or whatever. But I mean, and to something as simple as, hey, write like you talk. Because I came from 4 years of online college and writing college papers
Yeah.
and having to have everything a certain way, and you couldn't use contractions. And, my favorite thing she said was, for the love of God, woman, use a contraction.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that was huge for me. And I'm like, okay, I can actually put I'm and not I am.
Yeah.
And,
Or did not. I definitely understand that. Listen, after
Yeah.
being in college for 7 years, I'm so used to saying did not that when I talk in my everyday language, I say I did not
Yeah.
instead of I didn't, and
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what was the best compliment you've ever gotten on your books?
I would honestly say it also came from her. And I say that because she has literally edited every word I've ever written. And she has seen like all the mess ups and all the blunders and all the everything. And she sent me a message not long ago that she was working on the book for the new series. And when it came in, she said, I'm absolutely, all caps, loving this book.
Good.
And she said, your writing is stronger, your storytelling is stronger. And I was like, I'm not crying. So I mean,
Yeah.
that was huge because, like I said, you all see the finished product. She sees the
raw.
behind the scenes, like stuff that I completely mess up or whatever. But again, that was huge, and that was just. I was showing it to everybody. I was like, here, I was screenshotting it, sending it to people.
Yeah, and that is really huge too, Amy, because she has some USA Today, is it USA Today bestsellers that she
she
edits
is a
for.
USA Today bestseller,
Yeah, I mean,
and she edits for several.
She's
other.
a pretty big deal. She has her
Yeah.
own publishing company and has these bestsellers under her. And
Yeah.
I'm like, so for her to say that to you,
Yeah.
that's a pretty big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
It was huge for me.
So, what is a favorite line from one of your books? Do you have one?
Yeah, and it's actually from, let me find it here, from Star Spangled Murder. Yeah, and we used this one for one of our little teaser promo things. And the line is, what else is a best friend for if not to help a girl catch a killer?
Oh, I love that.
I mean, if you can't count on your best friend to help you catch a killer, what do you need her for?
Or bury a body.
Exactly. I mean, what do you need her for? Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And seriously, y'all, I'm really shocked, and I tell Richard this all the time, between my Google searches and whatever, I'm shocked the black helicopters haven't landed in my backyard yet.
They're coming.
Exactly. I know, right? I know I probably have a file on me from every one of those fancy 3-letter, organizations, but I don't care.
Well, I love that. Listen, this has been so much fun. It doesn't feel like this doesn't feel like, usually when I have a guest on, I'm nervous because I feel like I have to really pull most of the weight with the interview, because I've had some people on that just kind of yes, no, and I'm trying to drag it out of them. But this has felt like just having a conversation with a friend. But
Exactly.
thank you so much, Amy, for being my first
welcome.
guest last year, my last guest last year, my first guest this year. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Happy-
but thank you guys for joining me today. I know you've enjoyed listening to Amy as much as I've enjoyed talking to her. And join us again next week for another really exciting episode. That singing competition's coming up pretty soon, a lot sooner than you think. And remember to always dream big, because big dreams do come true. Me and Amy are living proof.
Yep.
It's little hands that make a big splash. A little bit of pride after a great big slide. It's a little family time, a little bonding, and all the biggest laughs. It's the little things that make the biggest impressions. Wilderness, a big world made up of little moments. Plan your vacation at wildernessatthesmokies.com.